Hey loves, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Faith, and today guys I'll be checking out this video from Thomas Sowell, and it's titled How Schools Are Dumping Down Students in America. And you guys, I'm super excited for this, and without much ado, let's see what this video is all about.
We've described the American education system, I think from top to bottom, including colleges, as being in terrible shape.
They are.
And why is that? Other than the standards being relaxed, that's not true at all colleges, for instance. I don't think.
Oh, you can graduate. You can graduate probably from any college in the Ivy League, or Stanford for that matter. I haven't checked the requirements, but I suspect you can graduate without having taken a single course in math, in economics, in history, or in any hard science. I think Brooke Shields created a sensation with things that she hadn't studied when she got her degree from Princeton. That wasn't special treatment for Brooke Shields.
Really?
Anybody can graduate from Princeton as an ignoramus. Now, if they really want to learn something, they can also learn an awful lot at Princeton. But it's entirely up to them.
Well, what about elementary and secondary education?
They're disastrous as well. One of the biggest problems is one that doesn't get talked about, but which is really at the heart of it all. The people who go into teaching are really the lowest level of college students. If you look at the test scores of people who major in education compared to people who major in history, science, anything else virtually, they're at or near the bottom and have been for something like half a century.
What would you do if you were, if you had taken the post of education secretary and President Reagan came to you and said, Tom, whatever you want, I'm going to be for?
I would say, well, all right, you've broken the airline air controllers union, break the NEA, and make teaching non-union. Now that would probably do more than any other single step that you could do.
Well, what would be step number two?
Step number two would be to hire people. Then step number two would be to abolish all education schools. I have argued that if we were to spend $1 million getting every professor of education to retire, and not hire any more, it would be the most productive money we have ever spent trying to improve educational standards.
What's the matter with education professors?
Oh, you obviously don't know any. It would be obvious.
You guys, let me know your thoughts on what Thomas Sowell is saying in this video. Do you guys agree with him concerning this, and what do you think about all the educational professors retiring from the educational sector? Do you think it will make a whole lot of difference in the education of today? Let me know your thoughts, and let's continue.
I don't. Yeah.
Oh, the stuff is unbelievably childish. I get emails from time to time from people who are in education schools saying, I can't believe the drivel they're teaching us here. And should I complain to the dean? And so I said, no, don't complain to the dean. What you're getting is the norm in schools of education. It's one of the reasons the schools are so bad. But see, the people in schools of education pay no price for miseducating students.
It is not society that is forcing these people to do this. These people have been looking for ways of evading academic work for generations.
Who is they when you say?
The teachers, the administrators, they love anything that is non-academic. There have been studies done of kids in schools and departments of education. They love anything that's non-academic when you get into role playing and all this kind of thing. And I think it's perfectly understandable. You get the dregs of the academic world becoming teachers. You have education courses that repel able students from ever studying the subject. And so you've cut them off at the pass. Anyone who has any ability does not want to take these ridiculous courses in college. And of the few who are hardy souls who go on and take it and suffer through them and become teachers, those with high ability are the first ones to drop out. And so within a very few years out of the class, you have the bottom half of the class now has tenure and the top half is going somewhere else. Well, the phrase is dumbing down. What's so ironic is the school is failing so miserably in what they're paid to do that they should take on this role of being social philosophers. A lot of these programs are really a substitute for hard work by the teachers. I mean, when I think of the teachers I had, they could not have cared less whether I felt good about myself. They didn't ask me, how did you get to school? Did you walk these 15 blocks from home? Or did you have money for the trolley? They couldn't have cared less. They wanted to make sure I had better have my homework when I got there, and it had better be right. The great problem with education throughout is that people are not accountable. They can run those schools to indulge themselves, whether whatever fad they like, for whatever way they like to teach, and that goes all the way through to the colleges. Teachers have been a very organized group since the 1960s, and the National Education Association is all in favor of these crazy things that have been criticized here this morning by me and by others, so that they have, and in fact, that's what choice is all about, is about putting the parents and the taxpayers and the general public in charge and not allowing these little groups to create their own little fiefdoms where they do what they please regardless of what the rest of us think.
What are your views on educational equity?
And what is educational equity? So it's always nice to know what it is I'm talking about.
The notion that school districts are not receiving equal funding per capita per student.
I think that we should equalize, if only to get rid of that phrase. And I seriously think that there's something to be said for getting that issue off the table, because it is a total red herring. But it's going to, as long as you don't have equalized spending in the schools, that is going to be blamed as one of the reasons for the other things. And so you want to get rid of it.
That's true.
A ton of evidence suggests the amount of money really doesn't make much difference.
You guys, I totally agree with what Thomas Sowell said here, because if some schools are getting more funded and others are getting less funded, and the ones that are less funded decide to perform way lesser, they're definitely gonna blame everything on the funding, even when they deliberately choose to not do better. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you agree with what Thomas Sowell is saying? If you did, leave your comments in the comment section down below, and let's continue watching.
In Washington, D.C., they have some of the highest expenditures per pupil and some of the lowest scores in the country. In fact, a few years ago, I saw some data on different states. Of the 5 top states at that time, and it may still be true, in test scores, all were below the national average in expenditure per pupil. Palo Alto High School has 6 tennis courts, some of which I've used, even though I never went to Palo Alto High School. They have a swimming pool, a baseball field, I mean, they're all the works. Now, none of that does anything for education. It's part of their lifestyle, and they want to keep it. Fine.
That's true.
No, I think that issue ought to be off the table.
I was just curious about what you think of Nicholas Lemon's thesis in his new book, The Big Test.
I haven't read the book. What is his thesis?
He questions the new meritocracy that has emerged with the use of he would probably use the scare quotes around the term objective test of academic aptitude.
And compared to what?
Well, that's my question, really.
That's the question the economists always ask. Compared to what? I mean, there's a story that a friend in the economist ran into a friend in the street, and his friend said, "How are you? How's your wife?" And he said, "Compared to what?" So, nothing is easier than to prove that something human has imperfections. I'm amazed how many people devote themselves to that task. Yes, well, obviously, people, if you're going to base self-esteem on performance, it cannot be equal, because performance is never going to be equal. And so all you can get in terms of self-esteem is make-believe equality. And of course, what happens in the schools is they grade, in many cases, not on the objective result, but on how you did relative to what the teacher thinks your ability was. And so you may do a wonderful job, and they say, well, he really was he's a very bright kid, he could have done better than that, so he gets a B. And the other student, who really did a lousy job, but it was a big struggle for him even to do that, and so he gets the B+. And of course what that means is that the whole grading system just becomes meaningless and confusing. The vision of cosmic justice is very beneficial to the people who hold it, even if it's not beneficial to those whom it's intended to benefit. And I think that's one of the reasons that people are so reluctant to give it up, because they feel wonderful. I'm sure that if we had had the kinds of teachers that we have today, and they had lowered the standards to all of us as we were coming through the school, and we all ended up going out into the world foredoomed to failure, those teachers would have felt wonderful about themselves. Because they say, hey, we're not leaning on these poor kids. We're taking into account that they come from backgrounds that are deprived. I mean, and particularly in education, this is devastating, because it's been shown again and again that in one generation, people can do remarkable things with a decent education. but they're not going to be done as long as third parties think that the purpose of the educational system is to make them feel good about themselves. The people at the bottom are so badly off that they have practically nothing to lose. One of the great disgraces of American education, far more important than the differences in spending, is the way teachers are allocated. That is, typically teachers start out in a good middle-class school, and it turns out they're awful. They'll be moved on to another school, and another. And eventually, they'll start moving them down the social ladder to stay.
You guys, let me know your thoughts on this one. Thomas Sowell is speaking nothing but facts, and let me know what you think about everything he's been saying so far. And let's wrap this video up, guys.
To neighborhoods where the parents are less educated, less affluent, less influential, less able to make trouble. And so they end up teaching those kids for whom education is their only road out of poverty. Well, not only in California, but elsewhere, this constant shuffling of teachers around, which is done, by the way, simply because of the high cost of firing them. When I wrote a book on education a few years ago, I said it was $50,000 to fire one incompetent teacher. That has now been more than doubled since then. And so they move them around. And in fact, this happens so much that there are even names for this. It's called the dance of the lemons, or the turkey trot. There are ability differences. And the educational system, coast to coast, is bitterly set against any form of ability grouping, any form of accommodating to kids who have higher ability. In one of the studies I saw, there was a kid who was in the 4th grade, and he could score above the national average on the College Board SAT in math. And so it was suggested to the principal that this kid should be given something other than 4th grade math. And the principal reacted and he said, no, that would be a violation of social justice. One of the things that protects American education is the fact that American universities are, in fact, leading universities of the world. But that's very misleading, because some of these universities are so good that it's very hard for American college students to get into them.
That's true.
And if you separate out the various fields and you go from the silliest and simplest, such as education, all the way over to the other end of the spectrum, math and engineering and science, you find that the percentage of the PhDs which go to Americans are the highest over here in education, sociology, psychology, etc. And then as you proceed across the spectrum, that percentage declines until finally you get over to mathematics and engineering, where less than half of all the PhDs awarded in American universities go to Americans. And so what we really have are international universities on American soil, supported by American taxpayers, with a very large component of foreign professors and students. And this is what is used to justify the American educational system. But of course, the kids who come here from elsewhere come here with much stronger backgrounds. I was surprised recently to learn that out in Silicon Valley, they're actually recruiting engineers from Russia and India, not because they're necessarily better than American engineers, but because they speak English better.
Assuming that parents play a role and the teachers cannot play the only role in the education of students, how can cosmic justice be created in an atmosphere where parents have not created a conducive learning atmosphere?
I think as they say in the law, you're assuming a fact, not an evidence. I know this is one of the great beliefs in the educational establishments, that all problems in the educational establishment are caused outside the educational establishment. The evidence on that is not compelling. And what is especially not compelling is the determined effort of the NEA and other parts of the educational establishment to prevent this belief from being put to a test. If it is the case that the problems are all outside the system, they're in the parents, then why do they fight bitterly against all forms of choice and vouchers, which would allow you to find out that if we take this same kid with the same parents, watching presumably the same television programs as he always watched and so on, having the same attitudes, and transfer him over into a parochial school or some other kind of school, why don't we find out whether in fact he will not improve at all, because it was never the school's fault in the first place. The bitterness of these battles are hard to exaggerate. In California, they sent so-called true squads around when people were trying to sign up petitions to get this issue on the ballot. And some of these people were not above using intimidation tactics to prevent people from signing. In New Jersey, one of the big companies, I think it was Pepsi-Cola, was prepared to give scholarships to low-income kids to go from the public schools into the private schools. They were so bitterly opposed to this that suddenly Pepsi-Cola machines in the schools began to be vandalized, and Pepsi had to back off its offer. So if it is in fact the case that all these problems originate outside the school system, why then are they not willing to put that belief to the test? Thank you very much.
Wow, you guys, that was such a beautiful video from Thomas Sowell. This was very, very educating, and he really spoke fat, and I enjoyed every minute of this video. Let me know what you guys think about this, and do you agree with everything that Thomas Sowell said, or is there anything that you want to add to this video? Let me know all of this in the comment section down below. I really enjoyed this video so much, and I believe you guys also enjoyed watching. If you did enjoy watching, give this video a massive thumbs up, comment, share, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.